Hello, I'm Alyssa. I'm a third-year medical student at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health, partnering with Wisconsin Voices for Recovery today. Wisconsin Voices for Recovery is a peer-run movement in the state of Wisconsin, which strives to bring together people in or seeking recovery, their family members, professionals, and allies, with the goal of eliminating stigma surrounding addiction and recovery. Today, I am joined by Mr. Clinton Peterson for a recovery chat, and I'd like to take the next moment for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story and your journey and anything you want to share right away.
Okay, again, my name's Clinton Peterson. I suffer from substance abuse disorder. I'm 54 years old. I'm Oneida Indian and European, German and Norwegian. I grew up in a mixed family and a highly dysfunctional family on both sides that included a lot of alcoholism and drug use and violence. And I didn't know it when I was young. I just thought that's the way all families were. You yell louder, you're right. And unfortunately, it's not that way. So I'd like to get into about the last 18 months of my life when I really started focusing after my seventh treatment center and my fifth incarceration that this is not going to be my lot in life. I'm not going to continuously keep going to the Department of Corrections, and I know there's a better quality of life out there for me. My journey started getting out of prison. This March will be 2 years. And I tried to take a Christian aspect, and I went up to a Shawano County, and I got released in Shawano County, and it was just horribly bad. I met my wife and brought her up there, she's girlfriend at the time, and this gentleman just decided to put stream pornography into the bedroom. I talked to him a couple times, and we had to leave. It just wasn't going to resolve. I had a friend pick me up, bring me back to Green Bay, Wisconsin, where I currently reside. And I got in a unique situation. I could not get in the homeless shelter because I was a resident of Shawano County, even though I grew up and lived in Green Bay 90% of my life. So it wasn't an option, and I couldn't get my parole transferred until I had a residency in Brown County. I basically went to work every day, and I had my girlfriend with me. She had to be off the streets, and we cut deals with hotel rooms. And they're not the good hotel rooms. They're the ones with the paraphernalia laying around and all the traffic. I tried desperately to work with probation and parole, and there wasn't a lot they could do for me. I wouldn't be living where I am right now if it wasn't for them, though. My PO was actually the deciding factor for my landlord to help me get in here. Housing is a huge problem because your record follows you, and it follows you for the next 5 years. And if you don't have people to speak up for you and you don't do the next right thing, you're going to be homeless. And it's a huge struggle. And how do people decipher the people that aren't trying to change and the people that are trying to change? My mentor had recently passed. His name was Ron Tim. And I never asked him for help before. He ran a jail and prison ministry program. But I had my wife with me, and I needed the help. So he paid for some hotel rooms and things like that. It wasn't a perfect journey, but the end result today and my quality of life today is so much better. And as I stop making excuses why I can't, you don't know who I am, you didn't grow up like me, this stuff isn't going to work. And I actually started taking accountability, responsibility, and actively putting integrity into my life. That knowing me and God have a relationship, and I have to keep doing the next right thing, did change really start to take place. There's a video out there. Everything you think you know about addiction is wrong. I strongly suggest anybody watches it. It's a TED Talk and it's on YouTube. And it formats off of Portugal's. The thing is I'm not going to move to Portugal's. So I applied it inside the United States framework and took from it what I can. And one of the philosophies is that maybe it shouldn't even be called addiction, but it should be called lack of connection. And my explanation to this is I'm spiritual. If you're not, I get that, and that's your choice. And the best way I can explain my relationship with my higher power, who I am also native, who I call Tankashla Sangoidisu, or God, is that if you have children and you have more than one child, you love all your children, but you have a different relationship with each one of them. And that's okay. But the fact of the matter is, nobody gets to tell you how to have a relationship with your child. And each one can be different. So my relationship with my higher power is personal. And that's the way it's meant to be. And until I started adding structure and foundation into my life and putting God first, that was my first really healthy relationship, and understanding the teachings and my responsibility of the relationship. Then I learned to have a relationship with myself. And that's a huge problem because I'm my worst critic. I beat myself up worse than anybody else does. If anybody did the things that I did to myself, me and that other person would have a problem. But I did learn to have a healthy relationship with myself. And I learned to like myself and I learned to love myself. That grew into letting me know how to have relationships with other people. It also let me understand my commitment in my marriage. I made a commitment to God, then to myself, then to my wife. So laying down these principles and these foundations and following them every day and learning how to have these relationships gets me further and further and further away from active substance abuse disorder. When I call people up today in my family, number one, they pick up the phone, which is a blessing. And number two, I don't have to ask them for anything because I figured out how to provide for myself. I get up, I go to work every day, and COVID has been a horrible thing, but in a strange way, it's been a blessing for people struggling through substance abuse disorder because it's opened up many pathways to some really good paying jobs. The problem is that you have to actively get out there even when you're working and you don't have transportation. Keep applying and keep saving and keep moving forward, and eventually things take off. To give you a little short version, what is it, about 10 months ago, my credit score was 514. Today it's 640. 1994 was the last time I walked out of a bank with a check in my hand for a vehicle. That happened on October 6th of this year. And I'm driving a really nice vehicle, and a bank said, "Hey, we trust you." And that's due to healthy relationships. And that's also being well aware of integrity in my conscience of the financial footprint I lay down with my bank. I mean, whether you think it or not, they're watching your transactions before they give you a loan. They'll say what they base it off of. But the fact of the matter is they're paying well attention. People take care of their money, especially when it's other people's money, and they're responsible for it. So a lot of, I would strongly suggest anybody that's in recovery and trying to get out of it would really take a look at your credit score and do the things like get some bills in your name, get a prepaid credit card, show that you can be payments and trustworthy because, I'm an adult. Nobody owes me anything in this life. It's for me to figure out. I live in a country. When I turn 18, doesn't matter if it's my fault. Life's unfair, but it's my responsibility. So now I work full time in the union. My company just gave me a spotter position. I was a forklift driver, and along with this comes a CDL license they're paying for, and a $2.35 raise. That brings me up to 23.45. I've never made this kind of money in my life. I have an HSED, so I'm not college educated. I have some college courses, but I'm not college educated. And this lifestyle is amazing today. So what it took for me and my wife to get an apartment was a little bit of help from NewCap, and they gave us 3 months rent and security deposit. And I finally found a landlady who said that because she knew my wife's mother and because my PO said I'm worth the chance, said I'll take your new cap, but first you got to come up with first month's rent and security deposit. Now, I don't know how my wife lives with me. We're in a studio apartment and we have applications out there, and I think we're about to get into our 2 bedroom. And this is all in 2 years after getting out. I don't focus on what I did, and my personal opinion is a lot of 12-step meetings. I think we're losing our way in them. I really do. Because, and I went to HA, Heroin Anonymous, the other day, and what's the difference if you're sitting in a room talking about what you used to do, talking about the syringes, the amount, the substance, because you're giving that power. You're not talking about how you're changing. I want to hear other people's stories of what are you doing? What value can I get from you? What are you applying to your life that works for you? Because I figured one thing out in life is I don't do this alone. I I, I don't get the credit. My higher power gets the credit, and the small circle of people around me that do, my mentors that do. And being uncomfortable is great. It really is. It's so scary. I had recently went to a man's camp last year. I'm going to go again this year through Celebrations Church. First time I was away from my girlfriend, my wife. We had just gotten our studio apartment. I got a 2004 Pontiac Vibe, jumped in it, went up there, and it was at Camp Unalaya. And my mentor had just passed away, so my idea was I need to find a new mentor. And it was the only thing going on with COVID. My reservation was shut down because of it. So I took this avenue, and after one day up there, I decided I got 3 days off work. I don't like this. I want to be home next to my wife. I just, I want to lay in bed. I don't want to walk 45 feet to a bathroom in the snow, and I'm uncomfortable. But I really thought, okay, I'm going to leave, but how am I going to leave? Because when I want to do something, I just do it. I don't care about anybody else. I don't care about respecting anybody else. And that's the mindset, and that's the substance abuse disorder. So I had to change the way I left. So I walked in and I explained to these men that I didn't know, look, whooped on my girlfriend. I want to go home. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like this. And this is the reason why I came here to look for a mentor. Now, because of that and walking into the common area, I picked up a new mentor. And he's been wonderful in my life. He's also been a great resource for verifying the changes I make in my life for employment, helping me get a. I'm also a recovery coach part time, and I know you're recording this, but I'd do that for free. I really would. Um, but that was my first real step in progress was thinking about other people, not putting my own self first, my own feelings first. But I left and I did come home to my wife, and you know, it's hard living in a studio apartment, but I have to do gratitude daily because I didn't have car keys. I remember going to work, and this is what work looked like. I had to argue with my tribe because of COVID for emergency rides through our transit system because I couldn't afford it. And then they would drop me off 6 blocks away from work because it was off my reservation. And I remember last summer, just right before I got this place, just screaming at God and yelling. There's nobody around. There's a big open area. Like, what did I do that was so bad? I didn't kill anybody. I didn't molest anybody. I had just broke. But I think that was my bottom. Tears coming down my face. I have this woman. Why she's with me, I got a clue. Definitely upgrading my life. She's a really good person. But she stuck it out, and after that, things started getting better. The place I worked was really unusually run, I'll say that. And I got into a little conflict, and I'm still learning conflict resolution. So they said they didn't need my services anymore. And I was, blah, 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 and start yelling in my head all the things I was going to say, how life was unfair. And I stopped and I called my employment agency. And before I left the parking lot, I had a new work assignment and another job for 50 cents more an hour. They said, we don't have a problem with you, and we know that place is messed up. Right away, I blamed myself. I thought it was myself because I always get into these situations because of my attitude and my mouth and my outburst. But by doing the next right thing and saying, look, I don't feel I messed up, but maybe I did. But here, I'm going to call and report to you. This is what happened. And this is what I'm talking about, accountability and responsibility and being uncomfortable. If I make a commitment to somebody and whether I fail that commitment or the other person does, that's not always my choice. Or I don't know if I'm right or wrong. It's another good reason for a mentor and helps me out with my relationships because he's been married for 30 years. I don't ask my friends, hey, or my old associates who are divorced or use the B word or the C word or this or that or downgrade women. I look in the community for successful men that people talk about. And one of the most exciting parts about being in recovery is I'm 54. I started using when I was 13. I don't know who I am. I don't even know who I used to be. I have decades of memory loss of my life. But the exciting part is okay, now I get to be a brand new me. I get to make myself into whoever I want to be. And you know, most of my life I was trying to be Johnny Badass. And that's a lot of work. You got to build that reputation, you got to get in fights, you got to talk tough, you got to look tough, you know, gangs, whatever. Get all that recognition for being an idiot. It's a lot easier to be a nice person and a good guy. It's a lot scarier and it's new, but it actually is a lot easier and much more rewarding. And that's the fun part about it is I got to be a brand new person. So I looked at the men in my community, the men I put in my life, and I would hear other people talk about him like, hey, he always shows up on time. He always says what he always does. That's a real good person. He's a real good husband. He takes care of his family. Excuse me. So I take those qualities from those people and I add them into my own personal repertoire and I use them. And today, for some reason, people like me. And that's really uncomfortable and really unusual and really new. But it's my responsibility to take care of my life and navigate myself through my life. Um, I don't get real big into what I was and who I was. I'll say this again, I've been locked up 5 times. Life on installment. Um, I have marks on my arms that will never go away. I have veins collapsed in my body, and I don't need to explain how they got there. You know, if you have a substance abuse disorder. I couldn't hold down jobs. I blamed everybody else for my problems. My family didn't want to talk to me. And I wasn't a good human being. I had a good heart and I was a spiritual person, but my behaviors were wrong and they were childish. My first mentor I went to poured in Sweat Lodge and he worked with juveniles. I was 33. He said, I work with kids. I said, I am a kid. He's like, no, you're a grown adult. I said, no, really? I'm a 16-year-old boy in a 33-year-old body. So this has been a long journey and a long process. But understanding structure, understanding commitment, you know, understanding that I come from a dysfunctional family. I have a cousin that's been down 20 years. He's got 3 years left. Gangbanger, first degree intentional attempted homicide on a police officer. I have an aunt that died about 10 years ago on I-94. She got shot by a state trooper. They had consent forms back then, and it was a controlled type of stop. The feds were investigating him. She had 9 ounces of meth in the back of the car. She took off down 4 lanes of the highway. The officer pulled the gun out and shot her in the chest. I got a nephew that I talked to that I'm working with who's in the Colorado State prison system. He's been down for 8 years. Again, drug related. Decided to burn it up ran into a halfway house chased by police and started the drugs on fire. They were initially going to get him with attempted murder on the police officers and everybody in that house. He got 15 years. Over there, they have parole. These aren't people that went to college. These are people that made tremendous changes in their life. Some are yet to be seen, some I'm pretty sure are. But this is what I learned. I'm responsible for my nephew and my little cousin going to prison because they looked at me and they said, wow, my persona is this is fun. I'm cool. You know, I'm that guy. I'm a tough guy, and when a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old sees that and their mind's developing and you're giving off the persona, I'm giving off the persona, this is okay. This behavior's okay. My life's okay. I'm good. Even though in here it's horrible. You know, I have to be accountable and responsible for my family members, my community, my children, other people's children. What am I showing them? And I think that's a huge problem in America, especially as men, is we keep going to prison and our women keep raising our kids and they can't be mom and dad. They attempt to be, and we put that responsibility on them. They've never been a 13-year-old boy, 14-year-old. I'll never give birth. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I'll never have a menstrual cycle. I can't have a conversation with a woman like that. These is another really good reason why men should stick with men and women should stick with women, especially in recovery, because we know what it's like. I know what it's like to be a dysfunctional young child making wrong choices. I have a responsibility to help other people correct that. Whether I want to take it or not, or believe it or not, that's a whole nother issue. But every time I step up and take that responsibility, I make a better community, I make a better life for myself, and I feel better. And my reward is a smile on people's faces and to watching the progress and watch them grow. Um, the people, I have a client, he's 26 years old. He's a cook. And he was caught in drama. And I had a friend that we used to sell drugs together. He went to federal prison. He took up culinary arts. He's got sauces in stores now. He's got his own restaurant, a little too expensive, but it's good food. And I directed these two people together. So my client got a $2 an hour raise after 3 months, and he picked up a mentor because he knows the guy he worked for also lived that lifestyle. So I surround my people and my circle around those people. And I have a simple rule. If you do not have my best interest in your heart, you don't get in my circle. Point blank, period. And if I don't have your best interest in my heart, I won't allow myself to go in your circle because I cannot afford the drama. I cannot afford the games. I cannot afford the childlike behaviors. And I cannot afford to lose my wife because I made a commitment to God that I'll honor this. This ring is a commitment to God, to myself, and I honor my commitments today. I watch a lot of sports videos because I'm really interested in how young African American men, black men, can come out of the hood, get a ton of money, and make it with no formal education a lot of times. And what I found out is they got really good people in their circles and they don't do it alone. And they're not drug addicts, but they got a ton of money and everybody in America now wants them and wants to be their friend. And the common theme I find is they have a real small circle and they have real good people that have their best interests in hearts. So I encourage people to look at other avenues to learn. And I know, Alyssa, you're a medical student. I can't explain how hard and challenging it is to go get myself taken care of, much less my wife. One of my last experiences, I'll just put it like this. My wife needed surgery because her sternum was cracked. Okay. And she got accused of being a pill seeker, a hypochondriac, a drug addict, which substance abuse disorder, and that the injury was false. Through persistence and getting the x-ray up at a heart surgeon, because they're the ones that go through the sternum, we found out that that was false. Um, Somehow I got connected with Voices of Recovery, and I watched it on YouTube, and I watched these medical doctors, and I'm like, holy cow, this is exactly what we need. Well, because of UW-Madison and the doctors there, she has recovered from the surgery. She's taken the Dilaudid as prescribed and got off of the Dilaudid. We had a strong support system that, hey, something I used to abuse is in my house. And it threatens both my jobs, my life, my marriage, the financial responsibilities I got. And yes, it is other people's business. Because if I don't make it other people's business, I'm treading in a really dangerous place. So yes, my parole officer knew, my support network knew, my mentor knew, our doctors knew, and we held ourselves accountable, and it went really great. But the stigmas that go along with that, and the tears that my wife went through, and the pain waiting 16 months for this surgery, and the amount of scar tissue they had to remove was the size of a golf ball. The surgeon called me when I was down in Madison because he told me how the surgery went. I was at a hotel waiting for her because it's the waiting room or hotel. I stayed up all night and drove down there early the next morning. I worked second shift. He said when he opened her chest up, he could push on her sternum and only half of it moved. The other half didn't. So we're dealing with a hospital here in Green Bay. He says she was fine. She's a hypochondriac and she's a pill seeker. I also said they couldn't imagine the amount of pain she was in. So it is so nice to know, as somebody with substance abuse disorder, that people up and coming are taking into consideration substance abuse disorder and that we're human beings too. And we suffer from a disease. And we can argue to the end of time how we got this. I'll tell you this, nobody informed me when I was a child that everything I seen could be dangerous to me. I was surrounded by people that used drugs or alcohol, and I discovered something really quick at 13. It kills emotional pain, and I don't like to be emotionally hurt. And so I abused this. Nobody ever told me I had a switch that goes on inside me, and they don't know it. I don't know when it's going to flip, but it will flip. And then now, for the rest of my life, I have substance abuse disorder. So, did I have a choice? Maybe I did, but who was there to guide me through this as a young man with an undeveloped mind and hitting puberty? My parents were only doing the best they can. My mother was paranoid schizophrenic with 7 different personalities. My father lost everything he had. He's mixed, hard time getting a job back then in Green Bay. Got accused of stealing, etc. Both of them are passed away right now. I'll add this in here. My biggest regret is my parents never got to see me sober. So if you have parents that are living, spend some time with them. I encourage that with my wife right now. We go out to eat just about every other Sunday with them because life doesn't last forever. I had missed so many Christmases out at my father's house. And the jerk decided to become successful after I was 18, really successful, and offered a real good life for my stepmother, which today I honor, by the way, because I saw, where's my money? Where's me? You owe me. You owe me. No, he doesn't. I'm a man. I got to navigate my own way and make my own. And now that I'm married, I really get it because I'm 10 years older than my wife. I got kids, but if I die, I want to make sure my wife is taken care of. Period. because we want to buy a house. And that's just a whole nother mind-blowing philosophy that the bank's actually talking to me about that. But okay, how's she going to make the house payments? If something has, how is she going to live? I want her to live like my stepmother lives. I remember my dad was in the hospital. He was, first time I went through a death sober. And I owe a lot to a lady named Dr. Zimmerman in Oak Hill Correctional Facility because I was suffering from other grief and loss. And I decided to really work the prison system and take up all these psychiatrists. And, you know, I, I was old enough where all the other inmates saying, oh, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, bro. You ain't me. You ain't going through my life. Back off. I don't care what other people say anymore. And the crowd isn't going to influence me. I got as much education, as much knowledge about myself as I could in my last time through the institutions. But I understood grief and loss, and it's not about me, it's about that person. And how can I honor that person? So I'm sitting up in the hospital room, and my dad kicked my stepmother out and had a talk with me, and he said, I ain't leaving you nothing because I have to look out for my wife. And I really didn't care at the time. Deep down, I was a little hurt because he got a lot of money. But it doesn't bother me today, and I have a better relationship with my stepmother now that he's gone because that was one of his wishes. And now I see why, because I keep him alive by calling her up and talking to her. I get it now. So it was tough. He had loves to play golf, was playing golf, had an earache, and the next thing you know, he had leukemia. And he went in 3 weeks. He got home 2 days later. He died before the cable even got installed in his bedroom. And he didn't even know I was homeless. I just figured, I was really getting mentally healthy, and he had so many problems on his plate. And I looked at myself as like, well, I still got life. I still got a chance to figure this out. He's got to deal with dying. I don't need to burden him with my problems. So it's rough. And, these stigmas aren't going to go away fast. I got a flag. I'm going to go into the hospital. Um, I got a lump on the back of my neck. My arm's tingling. I'm set up to go see a surgeon myself. And I have to deal with this. And I have to let him know I have a substance abuse disorder. But it's my responsibility how I get through this surgery. I know it's possible because my wife has. But I can always go get a second opinion. Uh, I don't live in Madison, but they got this thing called My Chart. We only had to go down there for the post-op or the pre-op, the surgery and the post-op, and everything else is done over My Chart.
Mm-hmm.
And where there's a will, there's a way. And the state of Wisconsin will help you funding with gas if you got medical problems to get down there. And also, if you're working on your life and you're involved with people, don't be afraid to ask people for help. It's not shame that you're hurting and you need gas money or you need food. There's a lot of people going hungry right now. You're not in a boat by yourself. You don't pick yourself up without the help of other people. Maybe there's the few people that have, but I think you might be lonely and miserable, and that leads back to addiction. Because the video I said, everything you think you know about addiction is probably wrong. They said it shouldn't even be called addiction, it should be called reconnection. Because as human beings, we're our DNA. We have an innate need to connect. And if we do not connect with other human beings, we will connect with porn, drugs, books, gambling, something. But it's usually unhealthy. And we get lost, and I get lost in that. So now that I reconnected with God, my wife, family, other people in the community, reconnect with community, give back to my community. And I'm not talking about at sentencing where you get community service given back, but going and doing things and making my time available to give back to my community just because it's good for my community and it's good for me. And the things and the rewards I found out, my daughter started helping me and we spent great days together doing stuff free that I used to think was crazy. Community service. Judge would tell me that. I mean, you're nuts. I'd try to work every way out of it. But there ain't nothing wrong with going down to a food pantry and handing out some food, or helping a neighbor. Or, if a little kid is playing in the street, that's your responsibility. That's your kid, because that kid belongs in your community. Take responsibility and accountability, not only for yourself, but for others. And that's what I live by today. That's what I do today. I don't know what it's going to take. I know this. If I was a doctor and I went to school, and was it 12 years to get a doctorate, and then you got to go, and that's just the beginning. Now you're in the hospital. Now you're way back down at the bottom. You leave college, you're at the top. Now you're way down at the bottom of the totem pole again, going in, and then have to deal with all the, it's a job. Anybody that comes in at the bottom, it doesn't matter if you're a forklift driver, a line worker, you're a doctor, you're working at the bottom. So then you finally get back up in your field again, and this thing called substance abuse disorder comes around, and they were never taught it. It's just a real humbling experience for a doctor to say, look, I don't know nothing about that. And a lot of them won't admit that. So they make stuff up, or they blame you. And I can't control other people. But I found other people, and, I'm not an advocate for UW Hospital, but after what they did for my wife and her surgery, I guess I sort of am. And it's good to know that you upcoming medical students, thank you so much. That I walk on two legs, I provide for my family, I'm a human being, and I'm not that same person I was out on the streets today. And I'm a good community member today. Um, I'm on minimum on parole. I've spent 30 years on parole. I think I got off once when I was 28. All my crimes are nonviolent. They're all under 3.5 or less. A small time drug dealer that just sold to use. Never made a profit. Never had the big cars, fancy things. Just couldn't figure it out. And you would think sometimes that I was the worst person on the planet when I walk into a hospital. So I don't think that's going to go away quick. I don't think those looks, the shaking of the head, the disrespectful talking to me is going to go away. And I can only respond and choose how I respond to that. And if I blow up and just start running at the mouth, I'm just proving them right, ain't I? So things are going to take time.
Yeah.
And then another thing is, life is unfair. It is not fair. But everything I said I was going to do when I went through the Wisconsin Department of Corrections last time, I'm doing. And I'm going, like I said, I'm going back in to speak. And that's just because I said I did it, and I want to do it, and I want to do it for myself, because I think there's a lot of laws out there that need addressed, as well as stigmas. And I won't see the changes in my lifetime, unfortunately, because of my age. But if you want to change a law, or you want to do something about it, actively staying in substance abuse disorder is not going to change that law. Getting up, going to work every day, getting my life in order, and then using my spare time to do things like this interview, and to get out there, because I have a really powerful tool, and it's called my voice. And when I'm sober, people listen to it. Then I can eventually get down to Madison and start changing shit, or jumping on board with other activist groups that are trying to change things. Like why so many nonviolent people in this country are locked up for substance abuse disorder or mental health issues. And if prison wasn't a money making industry, and they make it in wages and putting their kids through college and running these institutions, there wouldn't be private prisons. And private prisons are people investing their own money into a prison system. That's because they can show you that I can guarantee you this many people screw up on parole and come back as repeat customers. I did it 5 times. My last time, I didn't even commit a new crime. I just didn't know how to act. So I basically revocated myself out of childish behavior because I gave up on life. And that's unfair. My PO was wrong, but it doesn't matter. And if I want these things to stop and I want to change these things, I have to act right first. I have to put the effort forth. I have to make myself there. And I need people behind me to help do it, and I have to be accountable and responsible. I have to use my integrity. Integrity, besides God, integrity is probably one of my most valuable tools. And for anybody that doesn't know, the short definition of that is doing the next right thing when nobody's looking. That's tough. There's a lot of things I can get away with when and as somebody with substance abuse disorder, I'm a great con manipulator. I can manipulate myself just out of about on anything to get what I want. But when I misuse that, it's a good tool in sales. It's a good tool if you can use it right to benefit others, not to benefit self, you know, to change laws. But, if I could say anything to y'all is put on your big boy and big girl pants and start manning up and womaning up and take accountability and responsibility for your own life. Instead of saying no or I can't or it's not fair, start asking, do what I do. Ask myself, how can I? It's my life. I'm an adult. I'm responsible. And, as I work with other people and as other people work with me and I navigate through these challenges, there's always a way out. And I'm not talking a way out of trouble. I'm talking a way out of a problem. Even something as simple as an argument with my wife. I don't even know if I'm right or wrong because I never had a healthy relationship before. So I go have dinner with my mentor who's been married 30 years. So either I go home and I got a lot of sorries to say and I come home with flowers, or I got to come home and stand my ground. But we can agree to disagree. I can do it without calling her names. I'm bigger than her. I don't have the right to touch her or push her or humiliate her. There's ways to handle these situations. And growing up in a dysfunctional family, whoever yells loudest is right isn't the way to do it. Um, Flexing my chest isn't the way to do it. Learning the right ways to do things, learning how to have a conversation, learning what conflict resolution is, taking life skills courses. I don't got time for that. Yeah, well, I don't have time not to do that because I want a successful marriage. I make time for the things I don't want to do today because I see the value in them. And even if other people tell me there's value in it and I don't see it, if a couple people tell me, I go do it because I figure I got to be missing something. And I finally figured out I'm not really that smart. I gave myself way more credit than I thought. The smartest thing I ever did was listen to other people and let other people help me and let other people get involved in my life. And the only thing I had to do was ask myself one question: do they have my best interest in their heart? I lost a lot of people. I got a lot of friends in federal prison. I got a lot of friends that overdose and are dead. Um, I'm sure y'all do too. I'm sure our stories aren't that different. I just don't see the value in, reliving them and hashing them out. My condolences go out to you, the people that lost the children. But if we don't sit up and start doing stuff like this and stand up, what's the next generation going to look like? You know, I'm working with a 15-year-old that's smoking fentanyl. The first thing I had to do with this individual was train him with Narcan. Because if they're not alive, you can't work with them. If they're not alive, they can't get better. It's not encouraging a behavior, it's saving a life. You're not going to stop them. You're not going to stop 15-year-olds from having sex. They're going to do what they're going to do. It's not bad parenting. Think back when you were 15. Could anybody stop you? The things when I grew up, like beer drinking and smoking pot, now it's socially acceptable to IV drug use. Times change, people change. We have to get on top of it as communities, as doctors, as spiritual leaders, and take accountability and responsibility. And please don't say those aren't my kids and my kids don't have that problem. Because if it's a kid and they live in your community and it's your community, you have that problem. Whether you want to own it or not, believe me, you have that problem. I really want you to get that. I really do. But that's about all I really have to say. which is probably a lot.
No, that was great.
So,
I think hearing about how, these relationships that you've reconnected with and built have helped you and that advice that you pass on to others, I think is really helpful. We talked a little bit about your and your wife's experiences with the healthcare system, and I think one of the follow-up questions I have is, in what ways do you think our healthcare system can do better to support people in their recovery journey?
okay, we have a thing called a World Wide Web and a world community today. Let's take a look at what other countries are doing, because there's other countries out there that are leading the world and it's not America. And, when I went to grade school, I was taught Christopher Columbus discovered America. So those teachers were taught that in college, also Native American. The irony is he never made it here. The things our colleges are teaching aren't always true. And let's take a worldwide perception, and Portugal is leading the world right now in a lot of that. Let's see what other people are doing and got documented scientific proof that it works, and maybe jump on board and start following it. That's the only advice. And to remember, it doesn't matter what's hanging on your wall. I have a picture. You're going to have a master's degree in a doctrine. We're all human beings at the end of the day. We all walk on two legs. We're all suffering, and we're just all trying to make the best lives we can for our family. Let's stop being so mean to each other and start spreading some love. And, you know, I don't dislike doctors. They're only doing the best they can, the ones that don't know about substance abuse disorder, but there are places out there, and let's just use our World Wide Web and have a world community and perception. I need to change my perceptions, and the medical community needs to change theirs. And one more big thing is that I don't understand is this pass the buck thing that happens in our community. I followed the American Medical Journal, and for many years it's been going back and forth that addiction is a psychological problem or it's a physical problem. And all I see is that the psychology department and the physical health department are passing it back and forth instead of getting on page and talking to each other and sitting down in a room and saying, well, maybe it's both, or let's nail it down, or let's collaborate. Can a doctor take a time to talk to a recovery coach without a degree to get a better understanding of addiction? Can we collaborate as a team of people and get everybody involved like Madison's doing now? Can more of these places do this? Aurora, Bellin Hospital, St. Mary's Hospital here in Green Bay. Instead of I'm the doctor, listen to me. And can we all have a little bit more humility and gain understanding? Because information comes from the strangest places, and in Romans, God says we're all the body of the Christ. I might be one hair, you might be a finger, somebody else might be a toe, but together we all make the body. We're meant to collaborate to solve these problems. So, can we stop worrying about who's got a degree or who doesn't, and just start getting some humility and listening to each other?
Absolutely.
That's what I got to say to the medical community.
No, thank you. And then I guess the last question that I have is, we kind of touched on it a little bit with the piece about making sure you're staying accountable, but what advice do you want to share with those who might not be ready to start their journey yet? Or the best
Don't,
step to take?
first of all, get a fentanyl test. Don't use alone. If you can't die, you can't get better. And, you know, ask yourself this: is this my lot in life? And is this the best quality of life that I can provide and owe myself? I'll guarantee you it's not. Every day I wake up and I ask myself, am I doing the next right thing to give me the best quality of life I can provide for myself? And the answer today is yes. And I'm not always happy, but I'm always content. You know, you owe yourself more than you could ever believe, and things will happen to you that you can't even foresee. And my life is really great today. I have a successful job. I'm learning a successful thing. I got a beautiful wife. She's a great, wonderful person. We have a healthy relationship, and I got beautiful people in my life, and I enjoy each day. I do. I'm not big about cliches. It's just the quality of life I have today, I would have never guessed I could have. And if I seen myself walking down the street 5 years ago today, I would beat myself up. I really would. I would literally beat myself up. This is a beautiful, wonderful life. And it's the one gift we have on this planet. And in this country, when you hit 18, you unfortunately got to figure it out for yourself. So put the work in it and just ask yourself. I've sat in those rooms. I've been homeless. I've been miserable. You can have a better quality of life than you have today if you're sitting in those places. Get some good people around you and ask for help. That's my advice. I don't know.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. I think that's all the questions that I had that I wanted to ask you, but I do want to thank you so much for your time and your willingness to share your story with us and the advice that you provided. So thank you so much. If there's anything else you wanted to add, feel free. Otherwise, we can
No,
move forward.
just thank all of you guys so much for doing this. Thank Madison and UW Hospital for opening their eyes and recognizing a problem and adamantly going at it. You're changing lives. Um, for my wife, she says, thank you, thank you, thank you very much. You wouldn't believe how grateful she is to y'all. And you guys are doing a really wonderful thing. And thank you for taking time to interview me. And
Yes,
God bless.
thank you.